A few reflections on the eighth Sunday in Ordinary Time. The title that I given to these reflections is Let's Mind Our Business First. You don't expect to happen such things which have disastrous consequences not only locally but also globally. Being a keen observer of international politics, the balance of power and religious equations, I have been following the events unfolding between Russia and Ukraine. Having lived in Russia for many years and been to Ukraine a number of times, the present war is going to be not only catastrophic but suicidal for those countries involved and rest of the world. The Russian Orthodoxy has its roots in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. The war is nothing but a fight between the brothers of the same faith. In this context, we have beautiful readings for this Sunday as we prepare ourselves to welcome Lent, another season of our liturgical life. I have 3 points. The first one is let's clean our home first. Jesus says a disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone, when he is fully taught, will be like his teacher. Luke chapter 6 verse 40. As a teacher, Jesus instructs us to follow the right teachers and authentic leaders. We must look up for people who can guide us, mentor us, and lead us that which is truth, right, and ethical. Right guidance from the right teacher or leader would help to form a society which is wise and righteous. The Sermon on the Plain in Luke gives us a series of parables and vivid images which in fact tell us to follow not the darkness but the light, not the blind man but a man with clear vision. Jesus' teachings involve precautionary measures to lead a life of truth, justice, and peace. In other words, Jesus invites us not to be judgmental all the time, but to give space for prejudice and one-sidedness, instead to cultivate in oneself a compassionate and listening heart. Before one notices deficiencies, weaknesses or inadequacies in his or her neighbor, one must see them in oneself first. Recognizing such imperfectness in oneself is a grace. Often we do not do that, but the opposite. It is easier for us to see the smallness or littleness in others than our own. We fail to recognize why such weaknesses in others exist. We are good at advising remedies for such things which are not necessarily our concerns. Therefore, Jesus invites us to embrace his teaching. First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take out the speck that is in your brother's eye. Luke chapter 6 verse 42. A quote attributed to James Adam says, "There is so much bad in the best of us and so much good in the worst of us that it ill becomes any of us to find fault with the rest of us." Once again, there is so much bad in the best of us and so much good in the worst of us that it ill becomes any of us to find fault with the rest of us. The second point, let our actions determine who we are. A mango grower knows which mango is sweeter and tastier. The tree that does not give tasty mangoes is named as the sour or bad tree. We recognize the tree by its fruit. Jesus tells us, "For no good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit." Luke chapter 6 verse 43. We are recognized by our works, the kind of life we live and the nature of friends or acquaintances that we have. Jesus insists that our speech and actions reveal the true underlying beliefs, attitudes, and motivations. We cannot make good impressions with our bad behavior. We cannot walk with our heads high when our hearts are deceptive and our minds are corrupt. Usually, What is in our hearts comes out in speech and behavior. Speech reveals the secrets of the heart. Our words and actions should match each other. As Jesus himself says, by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Matthew chapter 12, verse 37. When a person deep down is good, kind, generous, compassionate, merciful, polite, and loving, only then he can be what he is for others. If a person is full of anger, rage, cunning, jealous, malice, cruel, rude, and evil, then all that he is deep down comes out in his actions and speech. Such a person cannot bring out any good for himself or herself, but only destruction and disharmony for oneself and those who are around him or her. Jesus teaches us that we have no right to criticize unless we ourselves are free of faults. The Lord asks us to look inward, to examine our hearts and fill them with the good treasure that God so desires. The third point, let's develop a sense of men and women of character. As we enter into the season of Lent in the coming week, perhaps the Sermon on the Plain of Jesus is right for us to put into practice as a starter. Both our national and international world order is corrupted by too much evil and wickedness. In recent times, such factors are leading not just mere disharmony and mistrust in our societies, but bloodshed and destruction of the very fabric of humanity. Many bigger, prosperous, and powerful nations are trying to fix the problems of others, trying to remedy others' blindness without even knowing that there are rules, principles, and standards one has to adhere to. Only Christ is our model for perfection. As St. Clement Rome said, through Christ we see as in a mirror the spotless and excellent face of God. We may be able to fool others, but not God. All our efforts in fixing our own problems begin with our little effort and trying to change those things which are small first. Therefore, readiness on one's part is essential. If we refuse to accept who we are, even God might not be able to help either. Identifying the fault within oneself is a good approach to start cleaning our home first. We must rectify our sense of perceptions and the root of our perspectives, which might not attune to the Spirit of God. The words of St. Paul might help us in this endeavor. Don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be encouragement to those who hear them. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Let our sense of mindfulness and awareness of ourselves help us to really embrace Jesus of the cross in our lives. A few questions for our reflections. The first one, how do you understand the teachings of Jesus in the Sermon on the Plain? Second, are there any areas of your life where you need to take out the log out of your own eye first? Third, where do you feel confident to take out the speck out of your community or family member's eye? Let's conclude these reflections with a short prayer. Gracious God, help me to heal from all sorts of blindness which covers me from seeing the true reality around and above me. Let my blindness be removed and helped once and for all. Set a guard over my mouth, O Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Thus I may be able to guide others to the truth and life. Holy God, who has filled me with the joy of your grace and salvation, assist me this day that I may do all things I am called to do without grumbling and disputing. I call on your Spirit to assist me, that I may be a beacon in a world where darkness seeks to overcome us in everything and at every moment, and help me to hold fast to the word of life. We make this prayer in Jesus' holy name. Amen.